Hi, I'm Sarah Jane from Natural Heating, and today I'm going to do a video on the Clock Sudbury. Now, I've already done a video on the Clock Blithfield, which is a multi-fuel stove, but the Sudbury is a wood burner only, and the setup and running of this stove is quite considerably different to the Blithfield, although both are very popular models in our shop and we do like both of them very much. As normal, all the stoves that I'll typically show you in here are ones that we run here in the shop and are ones that I'd be quite happy putting my own money on. But they do have very different features from each other, and some of these features are not for everybody. So I do try and highlight them all because it's important for my customers to find the right stove that suits their needs. So the Sudbury is a good sized freestanding unit that typically is installed in a fireplace opening because the whole body shell of this stove gets hot. It's not a convector unit, it's solid, it's all welded together casing, they're entirely UK made, they're a really solid and robust unit. Okay, so this is the larger of the two Clock Sudbury models, both of which are wood burners. This is the wide version. There's also a compact. So both of the stoves are 610mm wide, and this one is 435mm wide. The smaller compact is 439mm wide. Let's just go and have a look at it while we're here. Oh. So behind all this big stack of kindling, oh jeez, I can't get into it. Look at all this kindling. Yeah, we do go through plenty of it. Anyway, all right, so this is the Clock Compact, which is the 435mm wide unit, and exact same features as the wider version. It's just portrait because it's narrower. Same size internal firebox in depth, same height. It's just a bit less wide. You still get 2 logs in from front to back, so it's still a 5kW, good sized 5kW stove at that. So here we go, let's light her up. I've got a couple of cut small, kiln dried logs that we will put in there to get it started. This is your wood retainer or your fuel retainer bar for keeping your logs in across the front. Because it is wood burner only, there is no grate in the inside. So we're just gonna lay the kindling on top of the logs because we always use the upside down lighting method. And then a fire lighter in there and a few more sticks on top, a couple extra for good luck. My trusty blowtorch, and just light that fire. Now this stove is a bit more unusual than some because it's got a magnetic door handle. So if you've got bad hands, it's really easy to open and shut because there's no latches or pressure on your wrist. I do like to, and you should, leave the door slightly ajar for the first 5 or 10 minutes when you light the fire, because it does aid with clearing any condensation as the warm air meets the cold, and therefore prevents the smoke sticking to your glass better for a cleaner view. So it's a single air control on these that you just turn up and down, and we want to leave that dial turned clockwise, funny enough, clock, to open to the right hand side for the first 20 minutes, half an hour, until the stove has reached temperature. So these always have a good draw, good performance, nice bright firebox, really solid steel baffle at the top that is lined out with more heat retardant boarding and securely sits on top of the side and rear lining panels. Gives you a lovely big fire view at the front. See, if I shut that too quick, you'll see it'll start to mist and you'll get some condensate on the front of this stove because it's not hot yet and it won't give it enough power. You can do it and it'll light just fine, but it starts much better when you just give it that little more air boost. But what I find personally is the pull on this magnet doesn't always want you to leave the door slightly ajar. So I like to use these. They're called terry clips or tool clips, and I just put that on the bottom of the door when it's still cold. It will still be cold when I take it off, and it's just leaving that door a smidge open. I'm still going to sit with the fire. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving it unattended, but it just lets that little bit more air in and stops the door shutting too quick before I want it to shut. What I'd really like to see, Clock, if you're watching this, is I'd like to see a little tab that actually rotates and comes up behind here to keep that door slightly open, and that I can flip back down once I've got my fire established, because that would be really cool and a really nice little feature to the stove. Because do you know what? I really can't fault these. They're a brilliant unit. Well, I can because I just did, but they're a really good unit, and like everything, there will always be tiny niggles. Nothing is perfect, and I'm going to criticise all of them slightly to make sure you always know what it does. So as you can see, my fire is establishing nice and quickly, and it's already starting to catch fire to the logs underneath. As soon as my logs have caught properly underneath, I like to put another small log on top of my kindling pile while there's enough structure in the top level to support another log on top and get it easily up to temperature. But I don't want to do it too quick, so there's not a pressure drop where the hot that's going up is meeting the cold in the chimney, because we don't want to stifle our fire. But as you can see, this is picking away quite nicely. It'll get black on the inside. The black is just carbon as it's cold. That'll burn off when she comes back up to temperature. You'll see the carbon develop a bit more once we shut the door just shortly. I just want to give it a chance to get these logs lit and alight. Okay, so my logs have caught nicely, and there's still plenty of structure in my kindling to support another log. My door is still slightly ajar because this fire is still cold. Just open the door very slowly. Give it a few seconds to prime it and let the air in so that it draws any gases away. And then while there's still structure in that kindling, I'm going to put another log on top. There we go. Now my door clip is still on. This is nothing to do with the Clock stove. This is called Kerry clip if you want one, or spring clip. They often use them for garden tools. This one is a 38mm, but it's a handy little thing just to give it that little space and keep that door slightly ajar, because they shut quite quick because it's quite pull because of the magnet, and I just want to make sure it stays there. But I'm not leaving this unattended. I am sat in front of it while my fire is developing, and what you will see now is my top log, let's zoom in, is already nicely catching fire. This is kiln dry birch firewood that I try and use now for testing videos, because it just means I'm doing the same thing each time and it's a known entity. As you see, the inside is going to go black as she's reaching temperature and heating up. I can start to feel a little bit of warmth coming through the glass. There's a tiny bit of warmth in the sides. This will get red hot. Clocks, you will see them smoking as the paint bakes onto the surface as well. Typically that takes about 40 minutes, half an hour, 40 minutes of burning to get it to the point where the paint starts to smoke on. And there's another video on one of my feeds if you have a look about paint curing onto stoves. It's nothing to be alarmed about. They all need to do that as part of the initial burning process. So as my fire is nicely establishing itself, the door's still slightly open but also cold. I mean, it's only a few minutes since I lit this. 5 at the most. I'm just going to take my clip off the door and let it shut itself. And we will come back to this shortly when it gets up to temperature. Alright, so I've got one up higher on my pallet stacker so you can get a closer look at it. It means I'm not groveling about on my knees. Your dial control is via the front. Everything's noisy and echoey. It's a big industrial unit. There's no soft furnishings. Everything is noisy. It's not going to sound noisy when it's in your house. The air control systems are really nice and smooth on these. it's just to hear everything. You hear, you know, there's nothing to deaden the sound, so it's quite echoey in here. Anyway, so these are made in Nottingham, properly British made stove. As we all typically know, I'm sure you'll have heard all about clocks. They are one of the best known models, manufacturers on the market. They're for UK made stoves. Let's say it's magnets that hold the door shut, and it is quite a firm closure. This heatproof block, some people like them, some people don't. It doesn't look pretty, but it's very functional because this doesn't get hot. It is heatproof. So typically you shouldn't need a glove with this model. It's got no ash pan in the inside because it's a wood burner, and you just clean it out with a shovel. Nice look at the baffle. The baffle is quite simple. There's good airspace above it, pulls away nicely. That just sits in on top of the lining panels and lifts out dead easily. It's not suitable for going near combustible walls unless you're going to put a heat shield on it. So it comes with these screwed fittings on the back that your fitter can attach a heat shield to the back of the unit, and then it can sit as close as 200 millimeters forward of combustible walls. The sides get really hot, so you don't want it anywhere near furniture and things. We mainly put these into fireplace openings. I don't think we've ever fitted one of these particular models freestanding. Very few clocks freestanding, and typically they go into fireplace openings. There are adjustable leg bolts on all 4 feet. And from this way round, you'll be able to see the air control is much more simple than the Blithfield because it's one air control that controls both the upper and lower firebox chamber, and it's all on a geared system. Try and do this backwards. It's running, but it still runs on a geared system by rotating the dials. It's still the clock type mechanism we know and love, just one of them instead of 2. So you can move that the tiniest amount and it'll stay exactly where you put it. So for comparison, this is a Sudbury, which is the wood burner on the right hand side, compared to the multi-fuel Blithfield on the left. Now, there is a bit of size difference here. Quick tape measure in your mouth. Right, so the actual, from the back to the front door on the Blithfield, this is not the overall dimensions, because obviously the ash plate and the top stick out a bit more, but the actual body to the front of the door is approximately 360 millimeters on the Blithfield 5. Whereas, as you can see, the Sudbury is a good bit narrower, around about 330 millimeters difference. So it is a shallower unit, and there is a bigger firebox, as in deeper firebox, in the Blithfield. So in the Blithfield, from the back of the log retainer, we have 235 millimeter depth internal firebox. And in the Sudbury, from the back of the bar, we have about 200 millimeters depth of firebox. It's plenty for 2 logs. It's not too small, but if you want a bit extra capacity in terms of actual heat output, the Blithfield 5 is definitely more powerful than the Sudbury. It's a little bit more pricey because you're buying all that grate and stuff. So although they're the same height, this one is your wood burner, so there's no grate in it. So you've got all this extra glass view. So your glass view, we are looking at actual visible glass view. We are looking at about 325 millimeters on the wood burner. So on the multi-fuel, because you've got the grate end at the bottom, you see, with your ash pan, you don't have as much glass height. So the glass height on that one is about 245 millimeters. So it really depends on what you're looking for. The Sudbury has definitely got a smaller firebox, but more glass view. Both will give you easily 3 to 7 kilowatt heat output, variable to the room depending on how much fuel you put in and how much air control you have. Now the Blithfield 5 the Blithfield 5, the multi-fuel that's behind me, used to actually be rated right up to a maximum of 9.5 kilowatt. And it can do that, but people were damaging them. They were overloading them and putting far too much fuel in. It was never meant to be a 9.5 kilowatt unit. It was meant to be a 5 kilowatt unit with a variable heat output. You could get it up a bit or down a bit, depending how much fuel you went in. It wasn't meant to constantly burn at 9.5 kilowatt. To do that, you need the 8 kilowatt model that does up to 12 kilowatt. And some people just were abusing the model when they should really have been buying the bigger fire. So yes, you can run them higher, you can run them lower. Your average is going to be 4 to 6 kilowatt, but it does to 7.5. You're not going to do it any damage running at 7.5. But you shouldn't be filling things to the absolute max and chalking them up. The whole point is we run as efficiently as we can with as little smoke and as lower fuel consumption for the most controllable heat and be comfortable, not be overloading. See, this is burning lovely now. It's coming up to temperature nice and quick. Beautiful fire picture on these. Absolutely beautiful fire picture. They really are stunning. I can start to smell the smoke now. It's starting to get a bit whiffy. So you'll probably see the smoke starting to rise off it in a second as it's starting to get up to temperature. But at least now, as soon as that black burns off the inside and it gets hot enough, I'll be able to show you what it does in terms of control. Until the dark burns off and it all goes cream in there, then I don't want to turn the air control down because I want to heat the flue up and I want to heat the chimney up and not stifle my fire. It's kind of a bit like getting to 70 mile an hour in the motorway. You're not going to ease off at 50. You're going to keep your pedal to the metal. Well, not quite. But you're going to keep your foot down until you get it to the right speed, the right temperature. Then we stabilise it. So it's not ripping away. I can feel the heat starting to come out of it. I can see the paint starting to get tacky. We'll give it another 5-10 minutes just to clear that down and then I'll show you what it does. Right, I've put another log in here and we've got a nice roaring fireball, which is good. So it's burning nicely, it's caught up to temperature on the inside, it's rattling the heat out. The outside is starting to smoke, which you'll see, but we'll have a go at controlling it and that's just paint baking on and that will happen over the next half an hour. So. There you go, this is a new stove. It's actually already sold. I've got a customer who's going to be putting this in his house, probably later on this week. We're installing this one. Nice rolling firebox in the inside. That paint will bake off in the next 20 minutes, half an hour, and that's the beauty of burning one of the ones I've used in a test video, because at least you've had the paint baked off for you before it turns up. So air vent is fully open at the moment. The clip I've taken off the door will get hot. It's not hot yet, but the paint's starting to go off on top. My heat is higher rather than lower on the door frame yet. It will get hot all over. All right, so what you're seeing is that's just the paint starting to bake onto the body of this unit. There's more in another video all about that. That's the beauty of buying one of my pre-lit test models, is you don't have to suffer the paint baking onto a new fire. Anyway, we've got a nice fireball going on in there and the stove is getting up to temperature internally. The body casing is getting there, which is why the paint's smoking on. And your air control is a single air control that operates both the upper and the lower air control. That's the benefit of a wood burner. You don't have to work out how to balance two air controls from the bottom to the top. It's easy, it's just up and down. So we just gave this a twist in the geared system. And already it's coming lovely into check. It takes a good 5 seconds or so to properly burn off the air in the firebox and really steady the draw. There we go. Now, the diaphragm screw is open on this one. If we take it out, it will shut down a bit more. To do that, you really need to be running on a 6-inch flue and not a 5-inch flue. But that is a fresh log, so some of that flame will die back just shortly once the surface is a bit more burnt off. If I open it back up again, you can visibly see and hear the difference. on down again. Now it is on a geared system, so there's quite a good bit of control in here, but there's not nearly so much control on the Sudbury as there is in the Blithfield. The Blithfield has a lot more air control and a lot more travel in those dials than what the Sudbury does is in comparison. Of honing things in and having a huge amount of tolerance on a unit with microscopic gnat's hair amount of control that it says exactly where you want to put it is your thing, then you will love the Blithfield for that. But if you need something slimmer line to sit further back in your fireplace space and not protrude from an opening, then the Sudbury's a good choice. It has a bigger glass door and it has the handle that doesn't get hot. What you do have to be careful with this one is when you open the door, well, you should be reloading on red ember only, but prime it for a second or two and hold on to it to let the fumes evacuate up the flue before you fully open the door. And you'll see it's burning nice now. But it does pull back and forward with quite, I haven't got the right words here. When you open that door, there's quite a, when you open that door, it's quite a snappy control. It you feel the resistance in the magnet. So you don't want to wallop the door open because you'll put smoke and ash and all the rest of it out. No. Right, okay. So thankfully the paint is now smoked on this because it's not very pleasant. I went down to the warehouse for a while, just let it burn on. All new stoves do that. It's just one of them things. And doing so many test videos is something I need to do all the time. Anyway, this is now up to temperature and burnt down to red ember. And when we get chunky red ember, that's when we really want to reload a stove. Okay, so my log has caught nicely. My stove is already up to temperature, and in seconds that kiln dried log is catching. So I'm just gonna turn it down a bit, let it stabilise. Nice glowy fire, not too rapid burn. Nice rate, nice and clean, burns beautifully. Right, I'm going to show you something that I think is a bit of a safety issue in many wood burners. Not all of them, but the vast majority of them. A lot of it comes down to common sense. And you have to face it, some people just, unfortunately, weren't blessed with any, let's say. So I'd rather specify what some of you might think is obvious, but others might just not think about it, because if you're not used to using a wood burner, why would you think about it? But it's something that I think should actually be in all wood burning stove manuals, where they don't have a high log retention at the front. It's not just a clock. I'm not being specific about clocks here. Wood burners. A lot of wood burners have a big glass window and not a huge amount of ash retention bar at the front for holding logs in. Because what happens is, when you've been burning that for some time, you get a good bed, chunky bed of red ember, as you just saw. Let me show you again. And funny enough, this stove isn't burning at all, but for that reason, I'm going to use it for demonstration purposes. So, your logs sit in here in the inside, all right? And there's plenty of room to get a good couple of logs in there. You see? Now, this stove is empty. Well, it's not completely empty because there's 2 logs in it. I'm not really stating the obvious. But right, you need to have a little bit of imagination, okay? So, we're going to pretend that this stove has been burning half the day. There's a developed hot red ember bed in the inside. Any wood burner, doesn't matter, any wood burner. Your wood burner has been burning half the day. There's a hot red developed ember bed. These gloves are to represent my hot red ember bed, okay? Yeah, 2. We could probably do with a 3rd one. Let's get a 3rd glove. Don't care whose glove. I'm just trying to build the height up a bit on the inside. So we've got a good hot red ember bed and some ash in there. Got it? My worry is people with round logs. If you put a round log in there, who's to say that as that ember bed burns down, that doesn't blow and roll right onto the front where that door is. Do you see what I mean? So what do we do about that? Well, it's common sense, isn't it? If you're going to burn round logs, always put a round log behind a split log, because it can't roll. Nothing's going to come out. Nothing's going to come out at all. And this is way below our maximum load point, because we don't want anything blocking these holes, so the fuel has to be lower. And to be honest, to get that level of ember bed, you'd had to have been burning this fire all day. So I always make a point that with all wood burners, with my customers in the shop, I want you to always make sure as a safety feature you put that round log that you're going to burn behind a split log. Split logs typically burn better than round logs anyway. So safety first, please put your round logs behind your split logs because I say so. There's one other thing that I do. This is how this stove comes from the manufacturer. Right. Log retainer in the inside of the stove, decent amount of depth in there, halfway up my fingers, yeah, not so far, third of the way up my fingers. It's not too different from Infinite. Here's an aspect, see, same sort of depth, big firebox, round log, it's just the same, but you put a round log in, put it behind a split log, it's not going to roll, it's not going to go anywhere. I like to load further back in a firebox. Now the Clock is shallower than the aspect, the Clock Sudbury that is, in the wood burner. Here we go again. And I've got my own hack for this model that I do for all my shop customers that buy this unit. I'm not saying you have to do it, I'm saying I do it and I offer it for safety issues. So this retainer bar, this is how it fits in. It just slots in that gap, oops, behind the door. And I cut a piece of vermiculite with a chamfered edge and I slot it in behind the bar. Now this is not a manufacturer's recommendation. This is what I do. And if any of my shop customers that buy a Sudbury from me want me to do this, I happily do it for them. But what I do is I put that piece of vermiculite behind that bar, which raises it up about 1 inch. But more importantly than that, I'm giving it a flat back, so it's vertical. So now, when I put my log in, it can't roll. And ash can't roll out the front. Do you see? So even if it's one log on its own, or let's put our gloves back in. And that's a fair wad. That's not light. Let's put our gloves back in that fire. Put our round log back in. It's not rolling. Now, I've tried this and I've done it many a time. It does not affect the air system in the stove. And personally, I think it makes it far safer to use. I do keep these cut vermiculite pieces that fit behind these for the Clock Sudburys and the Sudbury Compact in hand that I cut to size in the shop, and that just sits in there, it goes nowhere. I just think it makes it safer because I just don't trust people. You may trust yourself that a log's going to roll, but how do you know a visitor's not going to use it? I not think twice and then a log rolls out. Not specifically in a Sudbury, in any wood burning stove. Just check what you're doing. Always put your round logs behind your split logs. We have many, and one of my fears is people don't think. They just don't think at all. I typically like to save the round logs because I like them in the log storage boxes, so I don't tend to burn them anyway because I never get very many. This stove is not due a refuel, but I'm going to show you for real what I mean. And typically I wouldn't reload a firebox until I'm down to chunky dead ember, but what we're going to do is prime the door, give it a few seconds to let the gases and any debris just pull away, and then slowly open them. You don't want to open it with a great big waft. Right, so See what I mean? Not ideal. Far better to put these at the back and not at the front. Just for safety's sake. Safety first, always safety first. And it's one of those things that you probably wouldn't think twice if we didn't tell you, and I'm really over particular. So I sell all the clock models and I keep them all in stock. I have them all in stock in hand here and on display at Natural Heating. Our best selling models are the Clock Blithfield and the Clock Sudbury, and the double-sided. I do a lot of double-sideds. I've got about 6 in hand at the moment. There are people that a Clock Sudbury suits better because of hands and things, and just the fact that the door is easy to use, or they like the big glass. There are others where the door handle, the little stubby door handle on the Blithfield, older people often find that difficult and are better with the other handle. Nothing is perfect. There's no stuff out there that's perfect for everybody. It's finding the right one for you. All of these are popular. I'm happy to sell them all day long. I'm not slating the manufacturers in any way, shape or form. I'm highlighting the differences so you find the right stuff for you, because what is for one person is not for the next. You need to see them, you need to feel them, you need to touch them. It's important that shops like us survive. But it's not just that. You won't get the service from buying on the internet without seeing and touching and feeling them. Because just because you're looking at some video review or your mate recommends it, doesn't mean that it's the right thing for you. It's like shoes. If you go and buy the wrong shoes, and they might look really nice, they might hurt because they're just wrong. Get the wrong stuff and it's just never going to be a pleasure to use. You need to handle it, you need to feel it. They're all different. The only way you can do that is come somewhere like here that's going to give you unbiased opinions and help you work out what you need. I've got people who come to visit us from all over the country. There's always coffee and cake and a friendly ear and voice, stoves to play with, lots of things to say. I've got heading towards 90 different models in stock and on display. And I'm trying to make it possible that you can see any of them burning live via videos, even if I don't have them on it at the time. I've currently got 5 models under fire in the shop, and I change them all on a regular basis. But I'll tell you if I think it's the right one for you, and I will be brutally honest, because if I don't think it suits and it doesn't suit where you want to put it, it doesn't suit the size, it doesn't suit your physical needs, it's just never going to be right. Anyway, I hope this helps, and if you want to travel and come and see us, I often do shop appointments after opening hours for those that want to come in on evening and weekends. Don't be scared to ask, we're here to help. I hope this video helps you. And even if you already are a Sudbury owner or a clock owner, maybe you'll actually think of putting your round lugs behind your split ones, because for me that's just a safety concern, and I'd rather everybody burns happy, burns safe, and risks are minimal, because why not? We all want that beautiful clean burning picture and a nice clean glass and good performance, and a lot of that is understanding what stoves do and how to use them. That's not dirt, by the way, that's my reflection. Anyway, thanks for watching, and if you liked our video, please give us a like or follow. Thank you.